All right, check the mic. After dark, talking Broncos, Chargers. Chargers get the win, Sam. 34-27. Huge game for them to go 9-6. Broncos fall to 9-6. Chargers very close to a playoff berth. Broncos still probably going to get into the playoffs. But man, this was a fun back and forth game, all turned around by the fair catch, free kick at the end of the half. What a blessing it was to be able to experience that tonight.
Yeah, the first one that's been made since 1976, apparently, almost 50 years worth. I think I remember the last time somebody took a swing at one of those, which apparently was 2019. Like attempts have been made
Yeah,
for since 76, but the last one that was actually successfully made, because it's usually it's a much longer kick than that. Like a 57 yarder is actually quite a makeable kick, particularly when you don't have a defense trying to rush it, etc. Like he had miles to spare on that. I would, that had a shot from 67, let alone 57. But yeah, a little bit of history, and whether or not that changed the game did change from that point on. Like the Broncos were by far the better team in the first half. The Chargers defense couldn't stop them at all. It was kind of like a rewind of last week's game against Tampa Bay. And then the second half, it almost completely flipped. Like Denver's defense suddenly started just shooting itself in the foot, not being able to stop the Chargers. Justin Herbert did that catching fire thing and started playing fantastically. And at one point, they were on a 21-point unanswered swing, and that they got too far in front. Denver weren't able to come back.
yeah. I mean, it was 21-10 at that point before the free kick, and like you said, Denver, they were cooking early on, man. I mean, Bo Nix spreading the ball around, making throws on the move, explosive plays out of the backfield, short passing game, but they were creating some big plays, running the ball pretty effectively, made a couple key stops on the Chargers. Really, tale of two halves. I thought Broncos had the first half pretty much in control, little bit back and forth, but Chargers second half, Herbert with some big throws under pressure as they were running the clock out. Gus Edwards with a big long run. I do think there was a play, 4th and 5, about 4 minutes left. I texted you, hey, I think the Broncos should have gone for this. I didn't check social media, check any of the numbers on it or whatever, but 4th and 5, Broncos, they had 3rd and 20, picked up some yardage, got it back, got to 4th and 5, almost around midfield. It wasn't exactly midfield, still in their own territory. I thought they should have gone for it. And Chargers end up, running a big chunk of the clock back and then score a touchdown to go up 2 scores, and that was pretty much it.
We're just in this world now where it is too hard to get a second drive, right? Once you reach a certain amount of time off the clock, you just have to go for the fourth downs because you're not going to get the onside the next go at it. You're going to have to score. Like you're going to have to keep this drive alive because you simply are running out of time. Everyone's kind of used to this scenario of, well, this is the amount of time you need. These are the timeouts. And then if you don't have that, you get the onside kick. Onside kick is dead now. It's not happening. Like it's a 2% play. If you are relying on an onside kick, you're already wasting your time. Whatever the percentage is of converting fourth down, it's probably a hell of a lot better than the 2% play of recovering an onside kick. So go for it.
Yeah. So it was a 3-point game at the time. So Denver's down 3. And I think part of that strategy is the inverse of what we talk about with this down 3 kick a field goal deal, right? If the Broncos don't get it, the Chargers, they're very close to field goal range, but you got to trust your defense to make a stop anyway. And even if the Chargers kick a field goal, it's like, all right, it's still a 1-score game and you're down 6 and you got to kind of take that chance to have the opportunity to keep the ball, right? With 4+ minutes left to keep the 4th and 5. So again, I haven't seen the actual numbers on that. That just felt like a pretty big play to me. And then the Chargers offense, they were very good in the second half, man. I still think, Ladd McConkey, when he was out, you saw the difference in their offense. He led the team again in receiving with 87 yards. It just takes a little pressure off Quentin Johnston, who, had another drop, has trouble catching the ball, takes pressure off him. Josh Palmer had a couple nice plays. But once you bump those guys down the depth chart, much better depth, I think, for those Chargers, even though it's not great, but it's better with Ladd being that number one guy, man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a fantastic player for them. Underselling the Joshua Palmer thing a little bit. Joshua Palmer makes a ridiculous, spectacular one-handed catch at the back of the end zone on a pass that was tipped before it got to him. I mean, that's one of the best plays that's one of the best catches of the season. I mean, utterly ridiculous to adjust to a deflective pass, bat it up in the air, snag it out of the air with both hands again, and keep the feet in as he's falling out of bounds. I mean, that's as good a play as you can make from a receiver.
My apologies to Josh Palmer. That was outstanding. Any other high-level takeaways on this? I thought Herbert played a really efficient game, had a bad pick in there early, but I thought, settled down after that and was very good, from the second half on or through the second half.
Yeah, I mean, he did that thing again, right? We talked about him being a streaky quarterback kind of within games, and he was okay in the first half, but not great. And then third quarter into the fourth quarter, he caught fire and was untouchable for a while. Like the touchdown that he threw to Davis, where he has to sort of scramble out to the left and then kind of flicks it back over a guy to Davis in the end zone. I mean, that was an incredibly good play. It's strange. Like when he's on, he is as good as any quarterback in the NFL, but he doesn't seem to be able to sustain that for an entire game the way, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes are generally able to.
Both quarterbacks running pretty effectively when they needed to. Another one where I was trying to get some context for Herbert's stats. He finished with 8 carries for 28 yards, Sam. So how good could he have been? He just had 3 kneels for like -15 or whatever it was. So he ran the ball pretty effectively. A couple key pickups. I thought Bo Nix again played pretty well early on. He's very good throwing on the move. And in the Broncos, once again with Peyton, I think they do a nice job playing to his strengths. There's just a couple misses in there that I think he would want back for sure.
Yeah, and the first half was kind of like earlier in the season, Bo Nix, where he had this insane, average depth of target, incredibly low, and yet the Broncos receivers are making a ton of plays and they were putting up points. But it was more like that kind of first half of the season, Bo Nix, where he wasn't forcing the ball downfield at all. He then, I would say, misses the deep shot to Marvin Mims. I mean, technically, it was pass interference, but it's the kind of pass interference that nobody likes getting called.
Yeah, don't reward that. Yeah. Don't reward that.
I mean, nobody wants to see it rewarded. On the other hand, it was pass interference. I mean, he got there early. One of his arms was pulling down Marvin Mims' arms, and he got there early. Like it was clearly pass interference, but it's the kind of pass interference nobody actually likes, because if the ball was 5 yards further out, it's a walk-in touchdown.
So that was a huge call. The second or third Broncos touchdown, that was clear illegal man downfield to the point they threw the flag, then talked about it, and then picked up the flag. That was illegal. Like, what am I missing there? I mean, Terry agreed. Terry said it was clearly illegal man downfield.
So he also made, I assume.
If you're engaged with a defensive lineman, right? If you take a defensive lineman from the line of scrimmage to the second level, that's okay.
Right. But does that get complicated by the fact that you are allowed a yard, right, for a legal man downfield? You get given that kind of yard buffer zone the same way you do with, offensive pass interference stuff, right? So if you engage with a linebacker before the yard is up, are you allowed to take that guy 5 yards deep?
I don't think that was the case. I mean, I don't think he.
No, really, it wasn't. But from a certain angle, it looked like he was engaged with the guy, as opposed to he took a swipe at him and then fell off the block, and that's why he's 5 yards downfield. I can see a scenario where they decided he engaged with the linebacker within the yard. They went 4 yards deep, and that's still okay. But even if that part is true, and I actually don't know what the rule is on that part, he didn't sustain the block, so it should have been illegal man downfield.
Yeah, I don't even like. I mean, it's the letter of the law thing and the inconsistency of it. I hate harping on that rule anyway. If it's not an RPO, it doesn't really affect the game. That was a regular pass play, I think. I mean, I was obviously some level of RPO, but I don't know, man. He was like 5 yards down the field, so they missed that too. I think that maybe offsets the pass interference play. So both teams are still likely to make the playoffs. Now it's a battle for 6 and 7.
I think they're actually more likely now.
Probably. I mean,
this was the way it needed to go for it to be the most likely scenario.
Yeah, and so I think it becomes a debate about, Kansas City could still technically be the 2 seed, and so you could go to Kansas City. You're more likely to have to go to a Buffalo or Pittsburgh or Baltimore, right? They're still in the mix as far as the AFC North goes. So yeah, that's what they're battling for. Go to Buffalo, don't go to Buffalo, go to Pittsburgh. Those would be some fun games either way. Broncos, Chargers going on the road, taking on the Bills, Steelers, Ravens, those types of teams. Could
Yeah, I
see
mean,
Harbaugh rematch, in round one.
I think both of these teams are dangerous in the postseason. Neither one of them, I think, is consistent enough to be like a true. I mean, I guess they're contenders if they get consistent. Like they only need to go on a run of 4 games or whatever. But you would suggest that neither one of them is capable of kind of putting that kind of run together and actually doing that. I sent you earlier the graphic that I'd stolen off Reddit somewhere that was like, does your record against above 500 or below 500 teams, right? Point differential, essentially. Both of these teams are the Miami Dolphins in terms of they beat up on terrible teams, they lose to good teams. They each have a massively negative point differential against under 500 or against above 500 teams and a massively positive one against below 500 teams. The Chargers took steps in the right direction by winning this game. But like both of these teams are capable of winning against good teams, but I just can't see them doing that 3 or 4 times consecutively. But they're live threats to anybody, I think, in the postseason.
Are we just too harsh on Miami? I mean, we're bringing them up because it's a multi-year threat, threat here.
So what this chart would tell you, right, which is fairly self-explanatory, is that trend is league-wide, right? Like everybody does better against bad teams, right? I think why it's such a thing for Miami is that it's so divided down the middle. They only beat bad teams and they only lose. You know what I mean? It's like it's exact. The point differential thing is a sort of broader. Like you could still beat a couple of good teams, but your point differential will be heavily negative and skewed the other way. You know what I mean? So when you look at it in point differential terms, it sort of highlights that everybody, more or less. I mean, there are a couple of teams that have good records against above 500 teams, like Baltimore, or maybe the only team that skews. They do better against above 500 teams and worse against below 500 teams. But like everybody generally skews in that way. It's just that Miami's is so you can predict every game by just looking at the opponent's record.
Yeah, I agree with you overall, though. Both teams can be dangerous. They could play pretty good defense. I think it's another game, not to overrate this whole dome discussion, but in a dome, it's harder to play defense. So you have the two lowest scoring teams. Like if you get into a bit of a shootout situation like they did early on, we don't have to sit there and be shocked. Oh, I thought these defenses were great. I mean, that tends to happen in really good situations, but they can play pretty good defense. Bo Nix is capable of putting together efficient games. I think he's been a little inconsistent, throughout the season as a rookie. It's not a dome, but it plays like a dome. I get it. Plays like a dome. I call it a dome. It was
fog coming right in off.
There's a little open air. I get it. Play good defense. And again, the Chargers, I think, are always dangerous because of the streakiness of Herbert, what he's able to do, both as a passer and when he does take off to scramble. So I think it'll be good. AFC playoff picture, rounding into shape in both of these teams. Playoff caliber game here. That's what it felt like. And I thought, it was a really good back and forth Thursday night game.
I will say also, though, like, okay, yeah, anytime you're playing in a dome, it's easier. I think both of these teams are built to play in cold weather in January, right? Like, I mean, you saw Sean Payton's play sheet with the run the ball or run it, note to himself. If the Chargers get J.K. Dobbins back and he's eligible to return week 17, I think. So if, assuming they're going to make the playoffs, which it looks very, very likely right now, if Dobbins is back for the playoffs, that's a potentially transformative return for this offense. With a J.K. Dobbins back there, like the Chargers are built to run the ball, to keep control of the ball, to play ugly football, essentially, in cold weather. I mean, both these teams, I think, are not the type of teams that are going to get, they don't get rendered, useless just by if they have to travel to Buffalo in January.
Yeah, I agree. So I think they'll be competitive. Enjoyed the game tonight, and I think they'll, at least scare some teams. You mentioned if they do, if you do get Broncos, Chiefs, and some of those or Chargers, Chiefs, the familiar, the third matchup within the division. Sometimes, weird stuff could happen with the familiarity as well if it gets to that point. So anything else on tonight's game? Is the stream doing okay, or is that just on my end?
I did skip for a moment, but it seems fine otherwise.
Great. It's coming from the parents' living room here.
The living room.
Living room. We moved.
Basement was occupied.
Kids are sleeping down there. So we had to move from my bar area set up down there with the Christmas tree. So coming from the living room upstairs right now. So
perfect. Got it.
Maybe it's my internet then. Yeah. Let's wrap it up then.
Yeah. It's just it's a brief one.
It is a brief one. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thumbs up.
What's our holiday scheduling? We're out of here now.
We're out of here now. Monday morning, 7 a.m. As always. We'll do our Sunday afternoon review as well in between the games. But Monday morning, full review of Week 16. No Wednesday show for Christmas. And then Thursday, day after Christmas, Week 17 review preview. And we'll also review the 2 Christmas Day games. So we'll kind of make it a bit of a hybrid and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Sound good?
I made an executive decision that I just gave Tyler his Christmas present since you're not here. And I decided that the visual effect of like unwrapping your present to you on camera was just not good. So I gave Tyler his Christmas present, the Browns t-shirt. But I think on Monday, rather than the gift swapping thing, which isn't going to work, you need to be in your elf costume. I will be in my Christmas getup on the Monday.
On Monday morning? Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
All right. I want people to take a vote on this. I'm going into the city with the kids, going into Boston with the kids this weekend. It's part of their Christmas present, taking them out and everything. Should I roll around Boston with the elf costume on? Should I?
How can you not?
I don't know if the family wants that. I don't know if they want to be associated.
7-foot elf roaming around Boston. That just, as long as somebody's got a camera on you at all times, I think that sounds like gold.
Do you think I could charge for pictures, like $5 a picture or something like that? Walking around, like how much would I make? It'd be like putting on super chats in real life.
You could certainly give it a shot.
I picked him up at the airport last year. I think I put that picture out on Twitter last year. So we'll see. And so yeah, we'll do our little dress up for Christmas. Sounds good. All right. That's it for us. We'll see you first thing Monday morning, Week 17. Hit thumbs up.